Now we're going to have a look at distance, speed and time. Now you may have seen this before, but we're just going to go over it again. So speed is usually measured in meters per second or kilometers per hour. So there's a couple of formula that are quite important to remember for this, and that is, if we're trying to find our average speed, it is our distance over time. So the distance travelled over the time it's taken. Okay, or you can go, if we want to find the distance travelled, it is speed multiplied by time, or to find the time, it is our distance over our speed. So there is a little triangle that you can use to help you remember this as well. So if we break it into our three parts, we have our speed equals distance over time. To work out time, it is our distance over speed. And to work out our distance, it's speed times our time. So a couple little things, so that would be a multiplication, and then these become division. So little things that can help us to remember them are going to help us in the future. So looking at our question, Jacob was driving from Broken Hill to Maitland, a distance of 1,104 kilometres. He travelled at an average speed of 95 kilometres an hour. How long to the nearest minute will it take him to reach Maitland? So we're talking about time. So time is our distance over speed, and then all we're doing is substituting in our value. So it was a distance of 1,104, and our speed was on average 95 kilometres. That will give us 11 hours and 37 minutes. Don't forget to use that DMS button in order to turn it into your hours and minutes there as well. Then we can look at our distance time graph, and again you will have seen these before, but it is a line graph that describes a journey using your horizontal axis with time and your vertical axis with your distance travelled. How steep the line is tells us how quickly or how slowly that person is moving. So this graph shows Monique's cycling trip. So at what time did Monique leave home? So we can see here it's starting down here at 9 a.m. We can see she travelled for a bit, stopped, travelled for a bit, stopped, and then this would be her return journey home. So when was her first stop and how far from home was she? So if we look at where her first stop is, we know it's stopping because there's no increasing or decreasing, it's just like plateauing. So her first stop was at 11 a.m. So if we go up to here and come down, that's at 11 a.m. And how far from home was she? We're looking at our distance, so that would be 40 kilometres from home. Find our average speed over the first 2 hours. So we're looking at speed. So our speed is our distance over time. So over the first 2 hours, so that's this first leg here, we're looking at, well, she travelled 40 kilometres and it was over 2 hours. So that's going to say our average speed is 20 kilometres per hour. What time was it when Monique began her journey home? So it's looking at, well, when did she start to return? So if we go up to the top here, she started to return, if that's 1 and 2, halfway through, so 1:30 p.m. is when she began her return journey. And how far did she travel altogether? Well, she's travelled 40 kilometres here, and then we've travelled another 25 kilometres here, and then home is another 65 kilometres. So if we add all those together, we're getting 130 kilometres. Find her average speed during her trip home. So again, we're using our speed equals distance over time. So her distance on her return journey, so she travelled 65 kilometres home. And it took her, if we look at when she left at 1:30, so we go, there's 1 hour, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, so over 2.5. And that tells us she's travelling roughly 26 kilometres per hour on her way home. So for how long did she stop altogether on the trip? So we can see here, this was a half an hour stop, and this was an hour stop. So we've got 30 minutes plus our 60 minutes, which tells us it's 1 hour and 30 minutes that she was resting.